have a seat for just a second. So, we were telling a parable to the children, and we're going to take a little moment to share that parable with you, and then we'll share more about our adventure. I feel like Mary Poppins have a little bag of tricks up here, because I'm going to tell you a modern day parable. This is called the parable of the knitter. So, Kingdom of Heaven is like 9-year-old me. See, at 9 years old, my aunt saw a little glimmer in me that said, nah, this girl, it's got a little creative spark in there. And she gave me a box with a hook and a skein of yarn. Now, this one's rolled up, so this isn't exactly what it looked like. Now, I don't know if anybody knows. Everybody knows what yarn is. You can do all kinds of things with it. I don't know if anybody knows what this is. Some of you might be able to see. This is one of the smaller ones. It's a hook. So this is for crocheting, for those of you who don't know the difference, and that's all right. It doesn't matter for the sake of our parable. Just know this is crocheting. It sort of matters. We'll see later. At 9 years old, put this on the floor, let it roll. And yes, the kids in Bethel got to see this as well. My aunt taught me the basic foundational chain to make something. So she taught me the little loop. I did this very easily now. When I was 9, I was struggling. And then she taught me this thing where you pull a loop through. This is not a crochet class, so you're not going to get all the pieces. But I'm going to go a couple of rows here. A couple of chains, I should say. And so I could chain. I felt so accomplished. Those of you can kind of see, what do I got going on here? I got a little tail going on. Great. All right. There's things that you can do with this, but if I just do this, I mean, probably about all I got is a tassel. I mean, I can make a really long tassel. But in order to make something, I had to learn to build on top of this stitch. And at 9 years old, when my aunt taught me the chain, yes, got it. I can do that. But then when she tried to teach me how to read the yarn, yes, that's a thing for those of you who do knitting or crocheting, I could not figure out for the life of me. She would show me, she'd go put this little loop in, pull this thing out. I'm doing it well right now. But 9, I had to have her start it so that I could even do anything. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do a couple here. All right, okay. But if she was not around, I couldn't make anything other than a chain. Now you can see here, some sort of, right, it's getting a little fatter. Now as long as she helped me out, I could add. So fast forward a couple years later, I pull out my crocheting again, and magically somehow at 12, I can understand how to make a straight line and build on something so I can make a scarf. Do you love my colors here? This was my 12-year-old fashion sense, I suppose, / whatever yarn I had available to me. This is the original. And I was able to make a scarf without anybody. I could just go back and forth, and build on that. Now, you can't see this, but I can see as the person that made this that I made a mistake in here. I bet none of you, unless you know and get up here close and know this, don't know that. Can't even see that. I could see that with my own eyes. And of course, that year, everybody got scarves for Christmas because, I could make all these scarves. And I was so excited. I didn't need my aunt's help for that at 12. Somehow, something finally clicked. Actually, I'm going to stick this up here. We're going to have a gallery here. Hopefully, it'll stay up. As I got better, I realized you can do more with this besides just going in rows. And I realized, this is me in my later teenage years. You can go around and make other things. So I started making hats. This is one of my current favorite ones. This one's not from that time period. This is a more current one. I thought this was fun, right? Like, this is a kid-size hat. Fun little, there's the tassels I was talking about. This is a little more technical. And all the colors that I could do with this, I could go around. And I was growing that skill. I'm feeling pretty good about this. Like, yes, I can make hats. Some of you have made hats with me before. Some of you have learned some crocheting from me. We've donated hats, etc. So I'm feeling pretty good going into my adult years. As I'm crocheting, I spent a year as a student missionary. And one of the ladies that was there was a big crocheter as well at the school that I was at. And she said, I had a lot of time on my hands as a student dean. Some of you can imagine late hours, early mornings. It was kind of nothing-ish to do at times other than make sure people are up or down or whichever way they're supposed to be. And she said, you can make blankets out of this. So I was going back and forth making blocks and squares. I didn't bring an example of a blanket. So in my 20s, I was making all these blankets. And some of you know that we've donated some blankets. So I'm doing pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good. Like, yeah, I can do a lot of things with yarn. I can do a lot of things with crochet. A couple years ago, a coworker of mine says, you should learn to knit. Those of you who have tried one direction or the other, you know that knitting involves 2 needles, not 1 hook. This involves some dexterity. And I was used to 1 hook, doing my little thing, going through, making these kinds of things. And I thought, I did not think how hard that could be. I did not think that. I was not cocky at that point. I was like, oh, that looks difficult. And I had tried at various points, and I was just, I can't. She's like, yes, you can definitely do this. But I already know how to do all these things with crochet. What do I need knitting for? Okay, so onward we go on this whole journey. She actually gives me some yarn. I think this is the yarn, and I'm going to actually not take that out of the way. She gets me started. It's this complicated process. I can do it now pretty easily. Complicated thing where I'm putting my fingers around a thing and I'm building something up. Okay. But I feel like my 9-year-old self who's like, I can't build anything on top of this. At the time, when I'm trying to hold 2 things, I'm more smooth now, but at the time I'm like, okay, something on my hip here, hold that up for me, throw a thing around. Okay, I think hopefully it stays on. Does that look right? If I have to take it out, it looks dreadful, and I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? But over time, with persistence and effort,
and discipline,
and practice, I can go, oh, okay.
time.
Put the little thing on. You can't really see it here, but I'm not struggling. Oh, I just dropped my needle. Okay. Anyways, you can't quite see it there, but over time, I can build something on that. And I realized, hey, this isn't too bad. And in fact, on the Bethel trip, I made a hat, a knitted hat. And honestly, this is a little easier than crocheting, believe it or not, now that I know how to do this. This is very brightly colored because this also is going to be donated to some kids. As you can see, slightly different patterns, different ways of doing that. And as I've continued on, I can also make, now this is in a straight line, this is one of the bigger projects, a blanket in chunky yarn by knitting. Now this one is going to my sister, who's going to have her first child. So this one is the first display. You guys will get to see this before my sister does. And this was made for her. And as I think back on this, I think back on the principle that is shown in this parable that we're going to read here in a moment. And the parable of the sower goes like this. A farmer went out to sow his seed. As he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path and the birds came and ate it. It's like early me, not too interested, can't get very far, those little seeds being planted. Can't quite do it, I need a lot of help. Some fell on rocky places where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly, but the soil was shallow. But when the sun came up, the plants were scorched and they withered because they had no root. It took a long time from 9 to 12 or 9 to 13 before my brain could capture the information that it needed to make root and to be able to do something with the crocheting. Other seed fell among thorns, which grew up and choked the plants. I often got distracted. I often was off the path. There were years where I didn't do anything. I didn't want to try knitting. It looked too hard. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. But here's the point. Some other seed fell on good soil, where it produced a crop, 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown. He who has ears, let him hear. The crop, if you will, in our parable, this is just a sampling of all the different things over the years with time and staying with it that I was able to cultivate from that tiny little seed that my aunt put in me and being creative. And it's the same thing with the Word of God, that when we allow it to grow in our hearts, He grows within us, grows around it, and it produces fruit in our lives. Let him who has ears to hear, hear. All right. I know that you are eager to hear, and I'm going to not trip Sam up, how our trip went. So time for the rest of the mission spotlight here. Sam, if you want to grab a mic. And I'm going to let her control so she knows what slides are in here. So some of you may have saw on Facebook, if you're over there, we did post some pictures up. Some of you are not on Facebook, I know that, and won't have an opportunity to see this. So we went this year, of course, to Bethel, and then we also went to this village here that I'm going to try my best to pronounce, Kasilig. Kasilig. All right, that's what we're going to call it. Hopefully y'all will just follow me on that. So we left on Tuesday, and we got on the plane in Wrangell, and this part of the journey, our traveling as a whole was a journey. I know it's Alaska, and we expect nothing less. We had got all the way to Petersburg, and on our takeoff to Petersburg, I've never felt this in my life, but it was a little bit terrifying. We started going off, plane halt, complete halt. Uh-oh, that's not good. We weren't up, we didn't crash into anything, but we're not going anywhere. The plane is actually going backwards, no longer forward.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Is this an Alaska Airlines jet?
Yes, this is a jet. This is on the regular jet.
A 747.
Yes.
37.
And halted, yes. So we move off back to where we came from, and we're thinking, well, who do we know in Petersburg? Because this is the end of the trip for today. But alas, it was not the end of the trip. Actually, it's probably in our favor. But here's the thing. We were about to hit an eagle, or it was going to hit us. I don't know which way you want to call that. But the eagle lived, and the pilot had decided it was best to abort before anything worse happened. So thankfully, nobody hit anybody, but our brakes were hot, as you can imagine, and that meant a whole nother level. They got to make sure everything's fine before they let us take off again. So fast forward, this delay means that by the time we are on our way in the air to Anchorage, it's time to leave to Bethel. And Sam and I are on the plane, and I'm like, well, all right, Lord, we at least know, y'all know Stephanie and Luke. We know Stephanie and Luke, they'll have to come and get us because this plane that we're supposed to get onto Bethel is leaving like any second now. And we were supposed to have at least landed and had, I don't know, maybe half an hour. It was going to be tight anyways because it had eaten up all our time up there. And I was just like, all right, Lord, this is your trip. We have some time. We land. We're like, yeah, there's absolutely no way. First thing that comes over the intercom. Those of you who are going to Bethel, would you please come to the front of the plane when we load? Your plane is being held for you. All right, Lord, got it. We'll be on. I don't know.
2 of us and another person.
Yeah, there was literally only 3 of us. I don't know why they hold planes for 3 people, but I do know when you ask where. But they did, and we got off, and they escorted us in. We delayed everybody on that next plane because of course, we were not traveling light. They had to get all our luggage. But us and our luggage made it, and that was the first miracle of the trip and answer to prayer is that we made it in. And we got to see our Bethel family that first night. So Wednesday and Thursday, I'm going to summarize this really quickly, and then we were doing exactly this, looking fabulous here. We were decorating because we were going to be spending Sabbath, doing a couple kids programs. We went up a little earlier than we needed only because we did not know at the time what day we needed to leave, like if we were overnighting at the village. So we had a little extra time. And so we were decorating. So it was super simple. We were only, by the way, when you only take 2 of you and you got to do work with like 12 of you, it takes a little longer as well. And so we put up our slogan there, good soil. You can see we had a picture of the sower and all that lovely stuff. And we also had to sort out, we had to leave some stuff in Bethel, and we had to take some stuff to the village. So we had 2 different things. We had to sort things out because we weren't going to redecorate because of the time frame. We were going to redecorate in both places. And so you can see Sam there is putting up a bird. We did a lot of nature stuff. another picture. This is their sanctuary. We also, every year, make goodie bags for the kids. I mean, the kids love this part. Like at the end of your program, you give them a bag, and in that bag can be a variety of things you can see there. Those of you who know, we were getting guides for a little bit to put out, and whatever we don't use ends up going on this trip, so they get used. And yeah, they get little candy, bookmarks. We had some leftover foam crafts that we had stuck in their bags and stuff like that. And they go home, they can take something home and share with their families. And I love making these bags for the kids because it just like gives them something to remember what they've learned. For our craft, one of the times we did a couple crafts. We had 2 different programs. We did Sabbath, but we did this craft twice. I debated on making you guys make one of these. I really debated, but I refrained, and we made these tissue paper flowers, which these are a lovely version of them. There was all kinds of variations. Some of the older kids, when we went to the village, were making, outstanding tissue paper flowers. I don't even know how they did that. Like, they're cutting it's just amazing. And they are very pretty. In fact, I have the leftovers in my house in a vase. You'll be happy to know just my artificial flowers hanging out from this trip.
Decorating.
Yep, and we're decorating. This is the boardwalk in Bethel. If you're wondering like what it looks like there, the ground looks like what you're looking at the boardwalk. This wonky, right? Because we're out on the tundra, right? You got permafrost going on. The houses, and by the way, the church also is struggling from this. Like things are shifting constantly. Every year we put a can on the floor of the kitchen to see which direction it will go, because it always goes a different direction. I mean, there's really only so many directions, but it's always leaning some different direction. And it's a little wonky, so they definitely are challenged by that. But this is just one of the walks that we went on while we were up there and had a little bit of time. Also, during one of those days, I think it was Thursday, we went out and handed out flyers. We went door to door and we're putting flyers out for the kids to invite them to the program. And that was a little bit of an adventure as well too, because we were trying to run between the raindrops to get them there. All right, so this is Friday when we were on our way, headed to the village, which I'm going to let Sam talk to you a little bit about that. Oh, actually, Sam's going to do Bethel. Sorry. I'm going to tell you more about this. So, Friday, transportation was an issue the entire time. We were told to come at 10 o'clock. We were leaving at 10:30. Great. So we get there, we have tried to lighten our load. There's 6 of us going, by the way. There's Sam and I, Joy and Colette, who are Arctic Mission volunteers, which you guys have seen their pictures, hopefully. And then Colette has 2 girls that she's taking care of. Matrona and Brooklyn went with us as well. So these 2 young girls, which was really nice. It was nice to have some younger folks with us. We were waiting for this plane with our luggage. And we only had like 4 totes total. They were going to do a health program. We were doing the kids program together. We waited I'm not joking, an hour and a half to 2 hours. Don't know why either, because they didn't tell us why, and it wasn't obvious. It wasn't like it was like windy or pouring down rain. We're just waiting and waiting. And finally they come out and say, yo, you got too much luggage, we need to par it down, yada yada. Okay, so we par it down. We get in the plane. We waited 2 hours to take a 15-minute plane ride over this. All right, because you're not driving this. Everywhere that you're looking is this. And we get there when we were supposed to be there hours before. We get there at 1 and we're supposed to start at 1:30. And when we arrive and we touch down, we had a police escort. And the police escort is 4-wheeler with a trailer. And we're like, we're not all going to fit on that, but okay. So we put our luggage stuff on there. A couple people hop on the 4-wheeler. The rest of us start trekking our way into the village. But it is village life, and when in the village, you do whatever. Somebody comes up 4-wheeler, you want to ride? Where are you going? Follow those guys. Hold on for your life. Don't ask us how safe we were. We were just holding on and hoping we didn't come off of anything. We were holding instruments. I was holding on one side, realize that I'm holding on the wrong side, because if I fall off, I'm just going to fall off with my hand still attached. So I'm trying to switch out. I mean, these guys are pros. They do this all the time. So nobody fell off. And I just want to say for the record, Colette is a medical professional. So if we had fallen off, as long as it wasn't her, we would have been okay.
They had boardwalks.
They had plenty of boardwalk that we were driving on. So we went to the tribal office. This is where we actually had the programs. We had a half an hour to quick put everything up and then try to make announcements and yada, yada, yada. I think there's more pictures from that. And so the kids arrived, but the last count we had 40 some kids arrive. And that was without us being able to do all the advertising we needed to. We put a little announcement over the radio. This is starting in 20 minutes. Come on over. And this is...
A couple flyers.
Put out a couple flyers. Some of the girls went and did that. We did our best to just put something up so it would be a little different than what they're used to. And in the background here, you can see the kids are making flowers. You're going to see, by the way, in case you're wondering, there's not going to be a lot of pictures of the kids because of child safety and their faces and all that kind of stuff. So you're going to see sides and hands and stuff. That's why you're not seeing an awful lot of them. They were there, though. And you can see there was our lovely memory verse that we did with them. There's some more decoration that we did for them. They had a great time. These kids, when we were singing, His Banner Over Me Is Love, you were going to sing this later with us. We're like clapping along, His banner over me is love. We weren't telling them to clap along. They were just clapping along. It was like, okay, they are in it. And they really enjoyed that. And it was fun to do music with them. And anytime we were doing music, we did music for the kids. We did music for the health program. Anytime we did music, people would just come, poke their heads in. What's happening? What are we hearing? So the music was definitely a draw. There's our crew. Most of us were missing one's in the front. That's us in the small airplane. We made it. We made it back. I will say on our way back, we got to the little gravel strip, probably one of the tiniest ones I've ever seen. You can imagine like real mission field looking type of gravel strip. And the plane was coming. And we're like, hey, the plane's coming. Up. Okay, all right. Comes around again. Does again. I don't think this plane's landing. Keeps doing touch and go. This is the point where like, is that our plane? What is happening here? We are cracking ourselves up because we're like, well, eventually we're going to get home. It was not our plane. It was somebody practicing touch and goes on a small airstrip because they needed the practice. Wasn't ours though. And we had a safe journey back. We made it in one piece. The health program for the adults was smaller, as you can imagine, but we still had a nice turnout, and Colette and Joy were able to kind of share particularly about the health message and nutrition, and shared this horrible, and I don't really mean horrible, but Colette had this home remedy for colds that was, here's the list: garlic, onion, lemon,
With the peel.
ginger, with some honey for sweetening. I'm sure it'll kill anything that you might have had in your system. It was, but it was well received because it's things that people could easily get their hands on there, even in the village, and that's something that they're very interested in. So we had a great trip, and we made it back in one piece that night, and I think this might be is that our airstrip? That's the village. Okay, so that's the village. You can see the village is not very big. And then this was us with our pilot here, who came up from Florida to fly. She said it was her first all women in the cabin with her crew, but she did a fabulous job. She wasn't the one that picked us up though, but she did a fabulous job of getting there when we finally were on our way. Okay, I'm gonna let Sam now tell you a little bit about Sabbath then.
So Sabbath, we had 10 kids at church and Sabbath school, and then we did an evening program for them. And we had the same kids all day. There's the flower craft that we did for Sabbath school.
Mm-hmm.
And they loved it as much as they loved it out in the village. I think these are actually village pictures.
That's fine.
And then we did a butterfly craft at Sabbath school. And then we did a couple games with them.
This is actually still pictures of the village that you're looking at the moment.
Yes. And on Sabbath, like, we had a little break in between church and the next program. We did a little walk around town of Bethel.
That's Matrona, and that was one of the girls that went with us. And actually, she helped out quite a bit. It was really nice because she'd seen the program in the village, and then when we did it in Bethel, she was helping pass stuff out and et cetera. So it was fun to like have her and her friend Brooklyn too helped us extra hands for Sabbath school and for church.
Matrona and I. But yeah, all the kids really got involved. Like, even though we were there a very short time, they really got involved with all the games and crafts and stuff. And we had a few kids in Bethel return that we've had in the past years.
Yeah, and for when we did the parable of the good, we actually did a slightly different one for Sabbath school and then for church because we knew that we were going to do good soil. So we actually taught the kids the parable of the wheat and the tares. So we went across parables, and both of those times what we had the kids do is we made it interactive, and we had the kids come up, and she saw some of our props, and they could be the bird that ate the seed, or they were the seed, or they were the sower. We had this cute little girl at Sabbath evening that was the sower. I think she was like 3, and her mom was the seed for what we were doing, and she'd throw the seed out, and we'd look and go, what happened to the seed? And the birds would come in and get it or whatever. But she was so literal at 3 that we're like, what happened to the seed? She's like, it disappeared.
What's that thing in the background?
That's a windmill. Yeah.
It is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's actually a windmill at the village. We were finishing passing out some health stuff. We had extra bags, and we went and finished passing those out.
Was there more than one of them?
Yes. There's, I think, even 2 that you're looking at right there.
Yeah, there's 2 there and then one over on the side.
And people were berry picking off to the side here as well. You can't see them, but that was why they went down that road. Is there are some people, and they went out into the berry patches and gave them some stuff. I think this is more the airstrip. Keep going.
Yeah.
That's the plane. That's the plane. You guys have seen small planes. Probably not that shocking. But I think this might be the plane that was not landing and didn't grab us. I think it was going around and around.
Yes, that is the plane.
That's the plane that finally got us. And actually, the guy that came and got us was like, you have too much stuff, even though we got rid of stuff, and we're like, it all fit when we came out. He finally figured out, and he put it all in and got us all back in one piece, because we were like, we're not waiting. and we made it back right there. Keep going. So that's set up. This is the game we were telling you about. The kids loved right there. That's one of the kids pushing the little bird across, getting ready to guess a letter. Keep going. This was during sermon time.
Story time.
Mm-hmm.
That's the butterfly craft we had them do on Saturday morning. More crafts.
That's from our walk that day.
Yeah.
It's believe it or not, it was bright enough that we needed sunglasses. This is why we're squinting as we're walking. We took a good walk between because the Bethel church also has a Korean church in the afternoon, Korean language. So they do their English service in the morning, Korean in the afternoon. So we were out of the church so that the folks that were going to that service could be in there. That's the river. More flowers. We loved our flowers. That's me fixing something on the computer. That was Paul, the police officer. That escorted those who could fit on his. Oh no, was he John? I don't know. One was John, one was Paul. Biblical names that escorted us. There's us playing at the village. There's the group. All of us. That's everybody that was in the plane as we were waiting. Colette and Joy are on either side of me. And then, of course, the girls, Brooklyn and then Matrona's on the far side.
Pilot in there? No.
No, pilot's not in there. Nope.
These are passengers.
This is just passengers. Yep.
There was one more. There was a number.
There was a number 7 that had to
Yes.
fly us. We were not flying ourselves.
7 is complete. So in the pilot, it is
Yes.
about as complete as
keep
it's
going.
gonna go.
All right, and then that's us finishing up the trip. We had to leave very quickly after the evening program because of the way the flights are arranged, and we jumped in the car once again. Scared our driver as we were on our way to the airport because she thought we had to be there at like 7, and we're like, we know we need to be checked in well before 7, and we were right behind a car that was obviously having an issue, and the cops came up and surrounded them while we were trying to get to the airport. And we were behind them. We're like, okay, well,
And you've got a plane to go.
and we have a plane to catch. So transport was difficult, but God got us everywhere that we needed to go every time. The police finally
Let us go by.
let us around and let us through and made it, and we were kind of the last people putting our luggage on the thing, but we made it all the way back. And then that picture's just me doing special music. We had a great trip. What do you think the highlight was for you as we're wrapping it up?
I think going out to the village, especially being out there the first time, seeing how excited the kids were, even though we haven't been there before or anything.
I mean, I would agree with that, and I just know as we were looking back on it, like, it was well worth. It was a shorter trip, and we had to do things a little bit differently, but I just think of all the seed planting, like how appropriate for us to be sharing seed planting with them, but like the seed planting that we were able to do and be a part of, it just, I mean, it blows my mind. I think total, we probably saw, like, we did have a few switch outs. We probably saw maybe 40 to 60, maybe 70. We were having trouble counting even in the little thing. Total kids, like, for the trip. And so, I mean, it's not about numbers, but, like, we were very blessed to have a lot of kids that we could work with. And then, of course, to see our friends in Bethel and to encourage them, and they encouraged us. It's always just great. So thank you for letting us share this year. Thank you for your support.
We got a piano there. Now, I know we're gonna be blessed with a piano tuner very, very shortly. I was just wondering,